Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission, to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Elkins Movie Club. It's Elkins Movie Club. Elkins Movie Club. It's Elkins Movie Club.
With Kent Wolgamon of the Lincoln Journal Star.
Just in time.
Pedro.
Shout out to Pedro.
Thank you, Pedro.
Pedro, our good friend of the Grum, who brings us treats all the time,
This is twice this week now that he's brought us treats.
just brought us some fried chicken
Yes.
from Mercado.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go wash my hands
Yes.
because I didn't want to touch the computer or the mic buttons.
You did a good job.
My hands are
Made
still
it just in the nick of
Are
time.
they still greasy?
a little
That is
greasy.
good chicken.
I've
That
never
is
had that
So
before.
good.
Sorry,
And-
Kent, that you didn't get to enjoy it with us.
Yeah, no perks for me, baby.
Oh, sorry.
Well, there's a Russ's Market down the street, I suppose.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, our boss came in. He goes, I have some fried chicken. And I said, what? Sure enough.
Okay.
We get the most random things sometimes.
Hi,
on
guys.
radio.
I was wondering if you had the Supermercado chicken. Here is a sample. I hope you like it. Great with beer. And it is a one beer Friday.
Oh, we
Yeah.
should have waited for beer, shouldn't we?
Yeah, but then it would have been colder.
That's
Are
true.
you a big fried chicken fan, Kent?
Yeah, actually, I live a block away, 2 blocks away from the best fried chicken in Lincoln, which
Popeyes?
is Leon's Grocery.
Oh, that's right. Yes, the Leon's fried chicken I've heard is very good.
Never had that before.
Yeah, Leon's is a small grocery store. It's not one of the big chains.
Okay.
But yeah, I've heard good things about that.
Yeah?
What do you think of Lee's?
Lee's, I think I will probably be there tonight, actually.
Oh, and maybe this conversation about fried chicken will have you ordering fried chicken.
You think? Because that's about all they sell at Lee's.
Is it?
Yeah.
They don't do anything else there?
I think they do
Burgers?
other things, but yeah, I mean, it's like,
Is it good?
Oh, it's good.
I've heard
It's good.
I've heard mixed reviews.
Yeah, it's good. It's not spicy.
But is it crunchy?
Yeah.
Or is it
Yes.
more
So
of like
you can get it crunchy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's enjoyable.
Hmm.
Well, speaking of enjoyable, did we enjoy the movie this week? Josh's pick, American Fiction. We saw it on Amazon Prime. This came out last year.
Last year it won how many Academy Awards, Kent? This one
It didn't
won.
win any, I don't think, but it got nominated for several.
I thought
It didn't win for screenplay.
that's what it won for screenplay.
Adapted screenplay.
Yeah. So this is a movie. Jeffrey Wright is the main character, and he is an author, and he is also a professor, and he is. I'll just read the Wikipedia sentence because I think it does do a good job. He writes an outlandish satire of stereotypical Black books, only to be mistaken as serious literature. It gets huge money. He gets paid a ton of money, gets critical praise. And so like that's the main hook of the movie, which in the trailer, that was what I thought it was about. But there's also, I would actually say a larger percentage of the movie is the relationship between him and his family as they are dealing with a variety of dramatic things.
Family emergency.
Yeah, going on with them. His mom is dealing with a whole host of memory loss issues. Something happens to one of his family members very early in the movie. Another one of his siblings is going through a divorce. There's in the backdrop of all of this as well is him and being very frustrated with the industry that he is currently trying to break through. And again, he's written some novels. He's had published novels, but it seems like it's been a while by the time that we meet the character at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, he's just generally frustrated because he thinks the concept of Black authors is being exploited.
Yes.
And the kinds of books that they're writing are totally opposite from the kind of books he has been writing, but the books that others have been writing sells.
Yes. And so he
actually writes this as a joke.
Yeah, he gets drunk one night. He's frustrated. He's throwing some back, and he starts writing it. And I thought that was one of the more interesting scenes of the movie, because then you kind of start
when you see the characters.
Yeah, they're showing up. They're talking to each other, and then they talk to him, and they're like, "That doesn't sound right. Let's change up the dialogue." And so he writes this, and he gives it to his
publisher,
his
agent,
and he's like, "This is a joke," and he's like, "Yes, it is a joke, but push it through because I want to make a statement." But then, as I said a few minutes ago, they want to buy it, and they want to buy it for a very handsome sum. He wants to change the name of the book to a swear word,
which he
does. And again, it receives lots of acclaim, and it makes him lots of money, even though he is obviously annoyed as hell at the entire process. So that is American Fiction.
Yes.
And we're not going to say the title of the book on.
We're not allowed to. We can say the title of the book that it was the original title, which was My Pathology instead of My Pathology.
Yeah.
And that was the original title of it.
Right. Pathology, making fun of the fact that some people have an issue saying
TH and F.
And F.
And it was another play on another character in the movie.
Yeah, when it begins because he goes to he has a panel that is poorly attended, and then he goes into a packed room where there is an author, and her book is called Weeze Lives in the Ghetto, and then she reads a chapter or an excerpt from it, and he is incredibly annoyed because he feels like she is pandering to the entire crowd and white audiences in particular.
She's fulfilling a need in the market.
Yeah.
And in fact, she is, because, this is really kind of a two-pronged satire with that family story wrapped into it.
Mm-hmm.
And when that woman author gives her, background, she went to Oberlin College, which is like about as an elite a school as you could possibly go to, and then worked for this New York publishing house, and then quit to write this ghetto novel that clearly she's never lived. She's just recycling all the stereotypes.
She did a lot of research.
Which is what's, drives the Jeffrey Wright character crazy, because he's also a privileged, shall we say, black man. She was a privileged black woman.
Comes from a very educated family.
Very educated, and his books are serious, scholarly in a way, even if they're novels, they're serious literature and scholarly books. And he doesn't want to be put in the black section.
Yeah, what's the scene, Ken? He's at the bookstore, and they are under. Was it like
they're under black? It's under black authors,
but it was studies, right? It was like it wasn't like novels. It was African American studies.
And so he takes a whole shelf full of books and carries them over somewhere else, right? To
where he thinks they should be displayed, because he's not trying to change the world, I guess.
And it's also bites the hand that feeds it a little bit, because it makes major fun of the Hollywood make a blaxploitation film with Adam Brody. Wrong Brody. Adam Brody. Who is he's like, struck me as like a Quentin Tarantino like director that wants to turn this novel about, what do you call it, drug dealers, gangs, and something else into a movie.
Well,
right?
And and this isn't giving a whole lot away, but there is a movie inside of this movie that is being filmed that is called Plantation Annihilation, which is just, an incredible pretend name of a movie. So making fun of all of those.
And I think the whole thing works largely because of Jeffrey Wright's performance. And he was, Oscar nominated for this for good reason, because, there's no great hero in this movie or great villains in this movie, right? So it has to be, those parts of it have to be pulled together somehow. And it's pulled together through his performance, which is, I mean, he's a great actor. He's been one since, I think, the first movie I remember seeing him in. He played Jean-Michel Basquiat, the artist, in the biopic Basquiat like 20 years ago. And he's good in everything. But this one, he's particularly good because he's able to embody that guy with all his conflicts and his regrets and his responsibility now to have to take care of the family that he's kind of ignored for 30 years or 20 years or however. And I thought he was great. And that's what makes the movie fully work to me.
Yeah, like he is. There are times where you obviously, like the main crux of the plot, I think you understand where he is coming from, right? And you say, like, yeah, that I imagine that you're pretty annoyed. On the other hand, he can be like an outright jerk to people in his life. You know, I don't know if they ever refer to themselves as boyfriend and girlfriend, but you know, he develops a romantic attachment and he can be very biting towards her. And it's obvious that he is taking out his frustrations on everything else that is happening.
Right.
And part of that too is that he stumbles upon her having the book. And I mean, essentially rips her a new one in that scene.
Right.
By all of his opinions about that book and that style of book and saying, how could you, someone like you, enjoy this book given that you're above this?
Exactly. Yeah. He does not understand why these books are so attractive. And I think, you know, and he gets frustrated because he also ends up on this literary council who's supposed to nominate the book of the year. And of course, his book gets nominated and he's trying to argue against it.
And it's a group of 5 and it's him and it's the other black author who wrote the book we talked about earlier. And then it's 3 white characters. And of course, those characters are, and one in particular, very much fawning over the book, very much, you know, this is the plight of the black man. Yeah,
that to me was the most enjoyable part, was just how they were skewing these folks who, you know, it's the white people who want to suffer alongside, right? I mean, when he talks,
white guilt people,
the white guilt folks.
I call them guilty white liberals myself.
Yeah, guilty white liberals. So, you know, he's on the phone with the publisher who wants to buy the book.
That was my favorite scene.
And
well, 2 of them. They're the one where he's just talking to her, and then another one when it's her and the other guy. And of course, his publishing agent is telling him, hey, you can't sound like you need to sound like the guy who wrote this book. And so now Jeffrey Wright has to play a character.
He has to
be a
ghetto it up.
Well, yeah, when he first takes the phone call and he's like talking and he's like, oh, no, what are you doing?
But it was funny because
he says, don't order this specific kind of wine, right?
That was great. Yeah, when he goes and meets with the director and he orders something and he's like, I didn't think that you would order a drink like that.
Yeah. But it was just funny to watch those phone conversations. And I would look in the background in the publishing office. Of course, they've got, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg pictures in the background. I mean, it's just playing it up. And I certainly enjoyed of that part of the film. It was an interesting story because, as Josh, you mentioned, yes,
we've only talked about the book part so far.
The main the idea, at least what I thought was going to be the main thrust, was the book and his conflict with those types of books. But the family stuff seems to take more of a center stage in all of this.
Much more.
Because he's dealing with his sister. He's dealing with the mother who is ill. He's dealing with the brother who has a troubled life and,
to say the least,
and, you know, has a drug problem.
And by the way, his brother is played by Sterling K. Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
great
so, actor.
And it seems like that became more of the focus of the film than the book at times. And it was kind of interesting to watch those two worlds kind of interacting with each other through the main character played by Jeffrey Wright.
Bouncing off of that.
Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I don't think that one story, because there were many stories in this movie, many themes and threads, which I really enjoyed. I don't think that any one necessarily took center stage. I think all of them kind of had an equal amount of time. which I think is really unique because I feel like movies just kind of have one story, one whatever, maybe like a plot or a B plot. But I think all of these were basically A plots interweaved in a way where it all worked.
Yeah.
And that I'll follow right up with that. I think is because the director and writer, who's Cord Jefferson, this is, by the way, his very first feature movie, adapted this from a novel, and it feels novelistic with that family story, where if it was just a screenplay, it very well might have been just the satiric part, which is Spike Lee did something similar, 15 years ago or something, with a movie called Bamboozled, right? Which was about black stereotypes and in shows. And, he did it, and it bang, 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 hit you over the head with the satire over and over and over, where this takes that novelistic approach and melds the satire in with the other story.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy has got some talent. I think this director, he won an Emmy for writing, I believe, The Watchmen.
Yeah, Ken, it's funny you say that, because I'm looking at his filmography right now, and I didn't realize he has written on some of my favorite shows of the last decade. There's a show on Netflix called Master of None. He wrote on quite a few of those episodes. The Good Place, Succession. He was a consultant on that show. He wrote on Watchmen, which was on HBO, and then on Station 11. Like, those are some pretty damn good shows in terms of, whether it's broadcast or your pay cable over the last handful of years.
Mm-hmm. I really liked, I mentioned earlier how I thought there was many stories
on many sides.
Many stories, many sides happening all at once, but with the same characters, but different stories. My favorite story within this was one that I really related to, for better or for worse. I'm not saying it's a good trait. It's a very bad trait of mine, where he saw the pandering, easy art book is lazy and bad, but the more complex stuff he held at a higher regard.
Mm-hmm.
We all remember the Of Music conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that was a real eye-opening conversation for me. I needed that. And nobody had clearly had that conversation with him. But I related a lot to that story in particular, to where I understood exactly where he was. Like, obviously from the exploitation standpoint, that side. But I think his character also was looking at it from an artistic standpoint too.
Yeah, basically, he low forms of art he doesn't care for,
right,
at all.
He's just like it because he doesn't consider it art because
Correct.
it's pandering.
Yeah,
and I really related to that plot, and then even at that conversation he had at the end with that other artist or the other author, same thing, where she was questioning him. Basically, it's like, well, why is this not art, but what you did is art?
Yeah,
or what this guy did, but it's the same thing.
So what did you think of the ending? It kind of stumbled a bit to the conclusion.
Yeah, I didn't like the ending. I think
interesting.
I think that's why I ended up knocking it down. So I gave it 3.5 out of 5. And I think it was because I didn't really like the ending. I thought that it got a little too cute for its own good at the end. And maybe it's just because I wanted it. And what was the movie that we talked about a few months ago that was super divisive? The end of the world type movie with Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
And people didn't like that because it didn't hold their hand at the end. And it just is like, here you go. This is what I just didn't like, that it was all, I don't want to give too much away, but it doesn't really kind of decide what it is.
It was a little self-aware.
It definitely is. And so I didn't like that. I wanted a bit of an answer. And I guess you kind of get some part of the answer. But I do think it also skips over, a lot of fallout. You just kind of miss the fallout. You don't see anything that happens, whether it's with relationships or whether it's with his career.
Interesting, because I liked the ending.
Interesting.
I think it was about 5 minutes too long.
Or one maybe iteration too long.
I liked the first I liked that. The first one.
The first one?
Yeah.
I think I liked that one the most too. I thought that would have been pretty solid.
But that was that's why I liked the ending, because it gave you multiple endings, and it took you in.
I will say the ending that it had was pretty funny.
It was
Yes.
hilarious.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and that's why I liked it, because usually these types of movies do take you to the conclusion where it ties up the loose ends. In this case, it was more open-ended, and it just said, well, this just kind of happened. So I didn't.
But what if it ends with the shot of his head and done? That ending.
Yeah.
That's open-ended as hell.
Yeah, but I didn't. But no, I don't want to give. I don't want to give away too much.
It's
But
an off-air conversation.
Yeah, it is. But
It's a secret list.
That's why I liked.
no.
That's why I liked the way that it ended. Because again, these types of movies usually do close up all the loose ends.
Do you know, Ken, is that how the book ends?
I have no idea. Have not written the book. Have not read the book. Certainly not written.
No, it's interesting. Last week when we were talking about Nick's movie,
Which was
Swiss Army Man.
Swiss Army Man, where one of the arguments you guys made were, I liked the beginning and I liked the end. Some of the middle stuff was
No. I liked the middle.
No, I also liked the middle.
Yeah, I didn't like the beginning.
I
and the
didn't
end.
like the end.
right. But yet you really enjoyed that. But yet Josh is going to dock this one because the end wasn't.
It was the same for me.
You didn't dock last week.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because I didn't like the. I gave him, honestly. I think I gave him similar grades. I think I gave him both 3.5 out of 5.
Interesting.
The ending
Yeah.
of Swiss Army Man was extremely
Yeah, I thought the ending of Swiss Army Man was
bumbling.
outright bad.
Yeah.
I think that this was just, again, cute. Ken, did you like the ending? You didn't. I don't think you've opined.
Well, that's why I asked the question. Because the first time I watched it, when this thing was in the theaters, I didn't really like it. And now this time I thought, I see why they did it, and I felt like it worked a little better. Now, that may have to do with just what mood I was in watching the movie or something.
Sure.
Right.
But yeah. I felt better about it the second time than that when I watched it in the theater. It just felt a little contrived a bit in the, when I watched it in the theater. It didn't seem so much that way this time.
And Kent, we have talked before in a variety of these interviews about how you go into a movie and what you were expecting. And like, I remember, John, do you remember that movie Mid-90s we watched a few years ago? And you went in thinking it was going to be a more laugh out loud, and it wasn't.
No.
And so it changed how you viewed it. I wonder, rewatching it now, knowing what's to come, given that it is not just the movie. I mean, all of the commercials, all of the trailers were, this is about a guy who writes a pretend novel. And I thought that was going to, and like, obviously they're going to be side stories, but I thought that was going to be the main story. And I thought the family drama was more of the story than actually the book was. And so I wonder if I give it another watch, if I like it more, and I guess how the, knowing the ending is going to come, how the ending lands with me.
Yep. And well, that's what happened with me is, I guess, knowing that how the ending was going to be, you can see why it worked more because you knew what was coming. Does that make sense whatsoever?
Well, like, I remember, Kent, another movie we've done on the movie club, Nope, from Jordan Peele, his third movie. I left that theater very cold to that movie. And I've rewatched it. I watched it for the movie club, and I think I've watched it another time, and I like it a whole lot more. And now I'm like, I wonder why I didn't like it very much the first time I watched it. So that's one where my estimation of it has grown a ton.
And that happens. Okay. I can tell you that from years of experience. My worst moment on that. Remember that Babe, the movie about the pig?
I loved that movie.
Yeah, I was in a horrible mood, apparently, when I watched that the first time. And I ripped it when it came out.
I watched that
And
movie
then
so much.
people were like, go watch it again, idiot.
It's a pig in the city.
And I went and watched it again. And I ended up putting it in my top 10 movies of the year.
Wow.
It really does depend. Your mood is important. What you're expecting of it is important. And if there's one thing I've tried to learn through this process is especially if it's a movie I have not heard of or very
Or if it's
little
picked by
about
Nick.
is
Go
to
in with an
try
open mind.
not
Mhm.
to learn any more about it.
Yep.
And just go into it cold.
Yeah.
And let the movie and the story do the work for you. And so you try not to have any preconceived notions.
And that's how I try to do every movie that I see. I mean, I might have seen one paragraph of description because
Yeah.
you can't avoid that sometimes. But like
No.
there was a screening yesterday. I saw a movie called The Old Oak, which was set in an English pub in a village, and I went in there, and that's basically all I knew about it. And it turned out to be this really engrossing story about Syrian refugee kids being relocated in this poor English village, and the pub owner having to choose between continuing to service his racist ... regular customers or try to help these people that have come into the town. Right. And it just completely pulled me in. Had I known that going in, I don't think it would have had that same effect, right? Because I'd have known what was coming.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
That is a very good point.
Well, that is American Fiction. It is streaming on Prime.
Indeed, it is.